welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me? Where I discuss hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope during the challenging times of life. I am your host, Natasha Smith. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today is so very special, and you'll understand why in a moment. I'm so excited to have Nicole Pharr with me today. She is a wife, mother of two, successful businesswoman, and manages space across social media she's named Far Away, where she encourages you to live life fully and love the age, stage, and space you're in. And lastly, but not least, she is my niece. Yay! How exciting! So, Nicole, hi, and welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me?
I'm excited to be here, Aunt Tasha.
Yay!
So excited.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired, but I'm here. But so excited to get started and talk to you today.
Yay! So today, like I've mentioned, it's already so special because Nicole is here. That I reached out to Nicole wanting to do something special for Mother's Day, and she said, "Hey, I'm actually coming to town for a few days for work." So she is literally sitting with me today.
Oh, it feels so good.
Oh my gosh! So she is literally today here in the studio.
So perfect. So perfect.
So now today's episode, we're going to be discussing coping and celebrating Mother's Day without mom here. Yeah. So Nicole, get us started by introducing yourself and then just telling us about your mom, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. So as she said, my name is Nicole Pharr. I'm a mom of two, Madison and Morgan. I've been married to my husband it'll be 10 years next month. So we've got a big milestone celebration coming up. I work for the Clorox company. I've been with them for about 6 years, and I live in Maryland. So I've been enjoying living there, especially given that my mom was born there. So many sentiments and things that come to mind just by, moving and transitioning to the place where she was born. I've been without my mom since 2011, and goodness, it's been a journey ever since then. Up to a place where I've really learned to cope with it, but I still have my struggles when it comes to Mother's Day and some other milestone dates related to her. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and it's so crazy how it seems like time has gone by, and sometimes it can feel like it just happened yesterday. So can you just kind of tell the audience a little bit about that time frame? Like what was actually going on in your life? Because there's some big things that were going on in your life at the time that I think is real pivotal to the story.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So we found out, gosh, I mean, it was even the timing, of losing her was really, really like streamlined, like very quick. So we found out in August that my mom was sick, that she had cancer. And you hear a diagnosis like that and it's serious, but you don't realize how serious and how quick it can be. And she was gone by October. And at the same time, it's interestingly enough, in August, I had found out I was pregnant as well, and so I had went to see her. I had told her I was pregnant, and, she really encouraged me in that moment. And then, we get that diagnosis, and gosh, it just changed everything, and then, like I said, in October, she passed away. And, months after that, I'm having a baby in February, and gosh, it's my first child without my mom, just the thought of that, knowing I wouldn't have my mom to help support me as I raised this first baby, was extremely difficult. That first Mother's Day, and still even to this day, Mother's Day is a really difficult time for me as a mom, because I never had the opportunity to experience my mom while being a mom. So it's been quite a hard date to get through every time. You have their birthday, you have their death day, as I like to call it. And those days are tough, but for some reason, Mother's Day is really, really tough for me. Like so much so that even as a mother, I struggle to celebrate it. And I was just talking about this with my therapist on Monday, and I'm a big advocate for therapy. Just how, it's funny that I'm here in North Carolina with my aunt when I really should probably be home because Mother's Day is on Sunday, but I was okay with traveling right now because I'm thinking about Mother's Day and not being busy can be very hard for me. So, I'll get home on Sunday to my girls, of course, but, it's just very interesting, how I have to process through it and find ways to cope and stay busy so that I'm not thinking about Mother's Day too in depth.
Mm-hmm. And that makes total sense. I would like to kind of talk about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Like when did you get to a point where you felt like, okay, I really need to talk to someone about this because it's a bit much.
Mm-hmm. And that had to be like the year after she died. And you're thinking, okay, I just had a baby, so I've got the postpartum and all that, but goodness, I mean, I could barely get out of bed some days. So it's like, okay, I've got a little baby to take care of too. So you've got to find some strength from somewhere, so you need to get some help. And so talking to my husband, he was very encouraging and supportive. But I needed someone that could really help me cope, help me come up with some mechanisms that would help me to get out of bed, take care of my baby, and eventually get back to work. I actually left my job a few months after my mom died too. So, I mean, it was a big deal. And I needed that time, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was just too much losing my mom, having a new baby, the depression that came after that. I just could not handle it because I had a high stress job. So I left my job for about 18 months. And so therapy and a lot of other things helped me get through that and eventually I got back to the workforce. Yeah, therapy was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. And I like to mention that because therapy saves lives.
It does. It does.
I mean, it's like, I hadn't always been a big advocate of it. And, I hate that so bad.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's, I'm a big advocate for it now.
Same.
If you need it, please, you can go seek help because a lot of times we have so many things that we encounter and endure, and we just need to get it out.
Yep.
We need to talk through it to be able to process it, in ways that will be helpful for us. Because, like as you mentioned, that was a lot of things. And that's why I wanted you to share that part of it, what was going on there at that time, because
it was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a
lot. Yes.
Yeah. Really tough time. And with therapy, I will say, I mean, it gives you an opportunity to talk, but it's someone that can give you tools to help you navigate through what you're going through. And it's the perspective too, like just helping me, I had been through a lot growing up, just even with my mom, and gosh, I loved her, such a compassionate, loving person. But me and my brothers had gone through some things, just with the depression that she had and things of that nature. And, feeling like, gosh, I miss her, but I'm so upset with her at the same time. And I can't be upset with her, like, yes, you can, and the therapist helping you work through those emotions, the anger, the grief, all of it. And you really got to get it out, and just having someone that has that understanding to pull that out of you so you can work through it and get through it was really, really big for me. Yeah.
So navigating through, and keeping with, the things and tools that you've learned in therapy, how have these years been? How would you describe the years? I know they changed. There's ebbs and flows.
Yeah, definitely. Some years are easier than others. Some years I'm busier than others, so that helps, But I think finding little ways to celebrate her has really helped. Like, I've found myself, okay, I have a tradition of buying some flowers for her that sit on my counter for the whole week leading up to Mother's Day every year. And that's really just to honor her, to think of her, think of the memories and not let myself get so down. And, just talking to my therapist on Monday, around new traditions, I was thinking about how, Mother's Day, her birthday, my mom loved to read. And so almost every time I'd buy her a book, buy her a candle, things of that nature. And like, oh, me and my girls can go to the bookstore and get a book, get some books, and I can go and get my favorite candle, that sort of thing. So how can I incorporate the girls into this memory, into this celebration, so that it makes it even easier for me? So those are some things I'm thinking about doing going into next year.
I love that so much. I love it so much. And I'm trying to get better with that, because it's really like, making space for grief.
Yes.
I love that phrase. That phrase is in my book. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean or what does it look like to
Right.
make space for grief?
Because it's there in the room anyway.
Right, it's there in the room. But I love the idea of really making the ones that are no longer here with us continue to be a part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the grief is there,
Yeah.
but how can we honor them, like you put it, and really make them, keep them as a part of our lives?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's kind of like pushing down the feelings of and emotions of it, because it's there anyway. But I love that we can have ways to think about them and honor them, and that's what making space means. It's like bringing them into our day, or bringing them into our week, or bringing them into our like special occasions.
Yeah.
And
not trying to suppress it.
Not trying to suppress it or forget about it or push it off to the side. Because it's important. They were major, big,
huge parts.
Huge parts of our lives.
Yes.
And as she talks about her mom is Sharon.
Yeah.
And
my best friend.
And
like
and that's my sister. And so I wanted you guys to know that relation. But and it's like it's just been just a huge thing for me to say, yeah, it's okay to say their names. It's okay to talk about them, tell stories, because it's been, to me, it just seems like a while that, we don't talk about them because we're nervous that it'll hurt. What kind of feelings is going to come up, if we start to talk about them. But no, we should talk about them.
Yeah. And then also, how will the folks around us navigate it?
Yes.
Will we bring them down? Will we burden them with our grief? I worry about that probably too much.
Yeah.
Because I've been through so much, and it's like, I don't want people to pity me. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. But I do want them to hear me. And so I've been working to get better at talking, like you said, about my mom, saying her name, recognizing how great of a person she was, even with her flaws, and just really hey, she was a big part of my life. She's still always going to be a big part of my life. So I'm going to talk about her.
Yeah. That's so perfect. That's exactly. And that's one reason for the podcast, one reason for my book as well, is to how can we as grievers be comfortable enough to continue to share our loved ones. And even, because it's not always like a physical loss of a loved one, but how can we share our losses with other people without feeling that we are a burden to them, to a burden to others? Because we're not a burden to anyone. We're just sharing those we've loved with you, and that is really should be an honor for those listening. It should be an honor for someone to share someone that they've loved and cherished so much with you. That's a huge thing. So I'm just still kind of stoked about this conversation. Let's share a few stories. Do you have?
Gosh.
I know.
Gosh, I have so many. Like, my mom was such a special woman. I'm such a strong woman, she taught me so much just through her strength. I talk about, like, I think about where I've come in my career, and I attribute it, like, almost all of it to, my mom, just because she has such a crazy work ethic. Hardest working woman I know, strongest woman I know. And she's made me a compassionate person. She's made me a hard worker. Gosh, and some of the things I remember most about my mom is baking. Like, growing up in the house and not being able to run through the house because she's got some cake in the oven, she's probably giving me my entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because, she worked all these jobs, but on the side, she's baking wedding cakes. She went to school and learned how to make, flowers out of icing, and could bake, rolls from scratch. And, to this day, if I smell yeast rolls and things of that nature, it brings up fond memories of my mom, because she was always baking and cooking something. And they were so good. I mean, she could cook her butt off. So just food in general can remind me of my mom, but especially baking. And I continue that with my girls. Me and my oldest right now, she's 10, Madison. We bake quite a bit. She comes up with, thinks about recipes, and we, bake cookies, bake gingerbread, things of that nature, because I want to keep that going. And it reminds me of my mom. And then we get to have fun conversations about my mom that are easier for me to navigate with the child, So it's just things like that, just continuing to keep her alive, continuing to talk about her with even my girls has been a big part of my healing too, you know? So it's, yeah, I'll just stop there.
I love that because that made me think of, again, just another way of honoring and celebrating her is to share her with your girls.
Yes.
And so I wanted to, so that brought up another thought in how do you, or how have you, which you kind of mentioned some of the ways, but how do you bring her into their lives?
Yeah, and it's little things like that, but it's also, you know, when times like this come up, talking about her more, letting them know how I'm feeling, like, hey, you know, it's my Mother's Day. I'm a little sad because I miss my mom. Here's some things about her, you know, and then they start to ask questions. They're curious, right? Because they've never met her, you know, they know what she looks like through photos and things around the house, but they've never met her, so they're learning of her through me, and that's really been big for me to recognize that, gosh, I have to share her or they'll never know her, you know. So and I love the questions that Madison asked. She's getting so curious, so she asks a lot of questions, and that really just keeps the conversation going. So just finding ways to just continue to pour her into my girls, and then having them ask those questions has really helped me to share her in unique ways. But I've also found it can make Madison sad. Like she's such a, you know, such a feeling, like she's very sensitive. So I have to be careful about how much I share and how sad I am, because she will pick up on that. And she's just like, gosh, you know, I wish she was here. And I'm so sorry, you know? So it's just crazy how in tune she is to my emotions around it. So, you know, I try to keep it very light with her, because I know that even for her, even having never met her, it can be heavy, you know, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. That's a whole nother
layer to it.
Yeah, a whole nother layer to it.
Yeah. Good stuff. I did want to bring up and mention too that, you know, I had my mom had me when she was young. And so she and I were super close. Like, and when I said friend, like my best friend earlier, like I really mean that. And it's obviously as I got older, we became even more closer. You know, we're talking every day. She truly is my best friend. No judgment. You know, I can talk to her about anything. And I realized, it was brought to my attention just this week in therapy that I have not grieved the loss of my friend. You know, my therapist was helping me to see that, like, you've grieved the loss of your mother these past 10, 11 years, but it sounds like you haven't grieved the loss of your friend. So, you know, so we're starting to work through and process that, because that's a big deal. You know, someone you can go to who's going to have no judgments, you know, love you unconditionally, that you can talk to, who's your mother as well. I mean, that's a big deal. And I had not processed that yet. So just more healing on the way, just knowing that. So yeah, some good stuff with therapy, man. I'm telling you.
That's really, really good. And that's what I feel like, you know, grief is so multi-layered. There's so many different things. And just sometimes the complexities of our relationships. You know, our relationships will have different layers, because I hadn't thought about it that way. And that's huge, because that's another
thing to process.
Yeah. And we know, you know, the process takes time. Wow.
Right? I know how big of a friend she is.
I know. Like, I'm like, okay, so let me go ahead and go and process this. Because again, it's crazy, because, you know, as Nicole mentioned, you know, she was like her best friend, but she was like my best friend too. You know, the same thing, no judgment. Like, oh gosh,
easy to talk to.
Talk to. Knows every single thing about me.
Yes, like all the deep stuff. You know.
So, wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a healing session right here.
Healing session. I'll run with that. Like later.
Wow. Yep.
That's big. So yeah. Wow.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a good conversation.
Yeah.
Just having a moment to talk about her with someone who understands, someone who's connected to her, and can feel some of the same emotions around her is really good too. And we don't do that enough either.
It's so true. You know? It's like having just being able to talk about it. I know I had posted something about her. About how she liked to read books, and how, like, I just can't imagine her reaction to me writing a book.
Yes.
I just know it would have been like
Go girl.
Yeah. And I can't even try to talk about it because I don't want to like be like ugly crying up here. But
the level of proud.
Yes. And but what got me from the post is one of my friends, Stevie, was like, oh, that's so something like, oh, that's so sweet. What kind of books did she like? And I was like, oh my gosh, she asked about her.
Yeah.
And that like made the hugest difference. I was like, oh my gosh, that was huge.
Wow.
That was huge.
That is huge.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. People talking and asking questions is
right. Because I've never experienced that like ever in my life. And that's one thing I want to kind of throw out there for people who want to love the grieving well, be compassionate, show empathy towards them. You know, it's okay to ask about those that are no longer here.
You're helping me process. That's probably why when Madison is asking questions about her, like, hey, what did she like? And what did you guys like to do?
Yeah.
Like how that warms my heart so much.
It warms your heart.
Like,
wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because that's what I said. Like when my friend had posted that, I was like, I want to
tell all the things.
Yes, I want to tell her everything. Well, she like these books and she like this. Because no one has ever asked.
Yeah, and I'm so glad this came up that we need folks to help us talk about our loved ones too. Like we struggle because again, we think it's going to be a burden, but things like this help us to know it's okay to talk about them. Yeah. So, these, no matter what the question is, to ask those questions, get the conversation going because we can continue it. We just need someone to open that door for us to talk about them.
Yeah. And it could be just like, how was your mom? Like, tell me something special about her. Those simple questions like that, or
where you feel like the freedom to share.
And it's crazy, that we need permission because we shouldn't need permission. But I think it's just how our culture is.
Yeah, I'm thinking about books. Like it's so crazy, like how much of a reader she was, and how that has just like it's a big part of my life. I got a book in my bag right now. My friends are gonna laugh at me later because I carry books wherever I go. If you go into my house, a book is there. Every room has books in it, and it's all because of my mom. Like such a big part of my life. Like every single day, my girls are readers now because of it. Like carrying on pieces of her in that way is so big, so huge. Like when I tell people, like my girls, they read well, they've read early. My mom every time. It's because of my mom my girls read the way they do, right? That's crazy. They don't know her, never met her, but because of her they read well, just little things like that. We're carrying on her legacy in some way. I just love that.
Yeah, I love that so much. Some of the things like I didn't know that you did with the flowers the week leading up to it, that is just so beautiful. Just a way to honor and celebrate her and just honor and just remember her. And then, like you said, I just like this conversation that we have, and then we need to have more conversations like this because to continue to keep the memory alive. Because I was like, we'll post things, or some, you may see somebody post something like, gone but not forgotten, but you don't never talk about it,
right? Yeah.
So is that really true? Right. I mean, what does that really mean? Gone but not forgotten, I just kind of think about them every now and then, and they're in my heart. But no, we can talk about them out loud. We can share them across social media if we want to.
Yes.
We can continue to share, and it's my prayer is that others will just make space for people who grieve to be comfortable in doing so.
Yeah,
but even still,
I appreciate like my friends who encouraged me to open up and share. I had gotten to a point where I felt like I can't share on social media, that, people are tired of hearing this. I post about it every year. And then one of my friends said, that's part of your healing is to be able to share and be able to talk about your mom. So don't ever stop doing that if it makes you actually feel better to share about her and talk about her. And then I love, I posted about my brother yesterday, and that's a whole, day before, and that's a whole nother story. But what you said about you love when I share about him, and I thought, God, I needed to hear that, because sometimes you think, gosh, people don't want to hear about this. It's one day of their life. We're thinking about this all the time. Like it's not constant, but gosh, it's a big part of your thought process, even unconsciously, subconsciously. You're thinking about your loved ones a lot. And so to be able to share out like, a couple times a year should not be that big of a deal.
Kind of hit back on just Mother's Day again.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had mentioned how like some, each Mother's Day is different. Like some might be more busier than others, but they all have been challenging.
Yeah,
okay?
Every single one, right? And it's funny. It's like it's weird because we have a lot of, or at least I have a lot of hard things leading up to Mother's Day. So I've got the this murder on the May 4th, and Mother's Day comes right after that every single year, right? So just April leading up to May is a tough time for me, even before that. And I really realized that this year for some reason. I think because last year was so hard, and I isolated myself from people last year, not even realizing that it was because of this. It was because of that lead up. And this year I recognized like, oh my gosh, I isolated so much last year because I was having such a hard time with it. So I did better this year, right? Trying to learn and process from that, to not let it impact me in the same way, but that doesn't keep it from being hard. So it still was. And so, oftentimes I want to be busy and just get through it. But, I intentionally had a therapy session on Monday, knowing, okay, I'm about to have some hard days ahead. Let's talk through this so that I can be better on the other side of it. And I can say just some things that came out helped me to think about things differently. Like, okay, I can do this. I can cope through this. And this year's going to be a good one. And so are the years ahead. And so, like I said, I'm traveling this weekend, but can't wait to get home so that I can, do some things with my girls, share out my mom with my girl, like every year going forward. I'm like, okay, how can I make this a celebration each year versus it being such a doom and gloom type of lead up and day of. So then that just came out of this one therapy session, so it's crazy that, I'm like, okay, I have to make this a celebration leading into this day going forward. And how can I do that? And, I got a whole nother year to process that going into next year. But yeah, so we'll see what that looks like, especially with my oldest. I think she can help me with some of that too. So this year will be, low key as it usually is, but I can see next year being a little different. I'm looking forward to it.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I did want to point out, like you said, it came out of one therapy session, but probably not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Probably not. Just sometimes it takes a little while to get to a point where we're recognizing and realizing
to have those breakthroughs.
Yeah, have the breakthroughs.
Yeah,
and I think that's cool to note that as we continue to process and begin to heal and go through this grief journey, it's really a lot of twists and turns and discovering things about ourselves and things about just how we process things.
Such a journey. I like how you said that. As we go through this journey, it is such a journey. Like you said, ebbs and flows. It's a process, and gosh, we're going through it.
So you had mentioned about how last year was hard, or just realizing, which is so crazy, but I get it because so how leading up to Mother's Day, there's so many hard things already. The combination of death days or death anniversaries, birthdays and holidays. I'm like, okay, Lord, it's not that many spaces. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
We've been through a lot.
A lot. And so when you were talking about, realizing like this is what happens every year in this order. That's hard.
It is hard.
It's a lot.
And recognizing it and having the people around you recognize it too. Because I think because you isolate, that can be a turnoff for some folks, but they don't realize why you're, the depth of why you're doing it and how hard it can be, and that you're trying to shield them from that, but you're going through, and so that's why you're isolating. That's why you're hard to, to get in contact with, whatever the case may be.
So the thing is, and it brings up the thought that left me before, is there's so many secondary emotions that go on with grief. And that's one thing that I'm recognizing. So anger is one one for me.
Yeah.
Anger, and so isolation or can go along with it. So it's like we're doing these things, and I say anger, and I'm like but it's more so like I get easily irritated.
Yes.
Short temper,
Moody.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? And so that's what happened to me this week. And I had to recognize, I was like, it's grief.
It's grief. Yep.
It's grief.
Yep.
And I'm sorry.
Yes. I mean, especially with my husband, like
Yeah.
we put the dates in the calendar, like our
Yes.
shared calendar, so that he can really keep up with it better. And leading up to those dates, he's more aware that, hey, she's going to be, you know, a little short. She's going to be emotional. She's going to be moody because I know she's having a hard time, and she's not going to say it because she's trying to shield me from it, even though she's not, because I'm irritated, etc. So I'm going to do it one way or the other. So let me find a way to support her better because I have the awareness.
Yeah.
You know,
that's so good because you have the awareness. And that's one thing I think as we walk through this is that we become more and more aware. Because it's so crazy to me. Again, I do the same thing with other, you know, death days and anniversaries. And I'm like, you know, I get through the whole week or the whole month. And I'm like, that's why I was feeling that way. I was like, oh, girl, get with the program. This happens every year. Get it, you know. So it's like just having that awareness. And I think for me, or just in talking about grief, is it possible to again make space for grief? Again, this concept of making space for grief, not just like when I'm having a griefy day, not like when I'm just feeling a grief, you know, I'm feeling heavy today, you know, but really making space for it every day.
Yeah. Like, I think we try to avoid grief.
We do.
First. And like I said, it's always there. It's always in the room, and just making space for it to be a part of your life that you navigate through so that you can get beyond it and then not let it impact you so negatively.
Right.
Because grief has such a negative connotation to it, but it's part of what we need to do to heal.
Yeah.
And so if we view it in that way, then we can journey through it better, I think. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So
I get it, actually. I do. Like almost, if I journaled about it for 5 minutes this morning, then, you know, I get to deal with it and then set it aside, and I can move forward better because I've allowed myself to deal with it instead of carrying it all day long anyway.
Again, making space, it doesn't seem tangible, but it needs to be a tangible thing. Like what does it look like to make space for it? So it's kind of like, and it's funny because I had just listened to a message, and you probably listened to the same one because it was on Elevation. But it was about anger. Did you?
I remember that one.
Anyways, but it was like anger has its place.
Okay, yes.
But we need to put it in its place. Keep it in its place. So it's the same thing with grief. You know, grief has its place, especially when you experience loss, any type of loss. But a succession of loss and just so much loss.
Yes.
It has its place because grief is the natural response to a loss. But it has its place. Yeah. But we need to kind of put it in its place. And I feel like it because it's with us. We can't do anything about it. Right. It's always the elephant in the room. We need to make space for it. And okay, I'm feeling something. Write it down. Yep. Even if it's that. Yep. Or even like vocalizing it briefly for that moment, because I actually did that this week because I was like, okay, girl, you are feeling real griefy.
And I love how you said griefy.
I know. And I was like, okay, you need to pause. And that's what I did. I really just paused and I said, okay, Lord. I was like, I'm feeling like really sad right now. It's okay to feel sad right now. Yes. You know, I'm gonna stop and acknowledge that I feel sad. And the crazy thing, I feel better pausing and acknowledging it. So anyways,
that's funny because my homework assignment from therapy this next 2 weeks is to think about what's triggering my emotions. So if you're getting upset or you're feeling moody, like what is it really? Is it because of what the kids did, or is it because you really need to be thinking about your mom for a few minutes and processing that and feeling upset about that, or feeling angry about it because she left so soon, whatever it is. What's triggering that, and then sitting with it is what she said. So sitting with those feelings so you can navigate through them and then move forward. Yeah. We get stuck anyway. So just sit in that space and deal with it. So
you might have to go back in time to heal
from some things,
to heal from something,
yes,
to be able to get back to present. It's like going back to the past to heal in the present. So it's just a lot of different things that we can navigate through, but
I can sense that. There's, especially going back to the past. I've had to go back to the past and really face some things and actually forgive my mom for some things, even though it's gone and we can't have those conversations to really navigate it together. But forgive her for some things that happened in the past that I was angry about holding on to. So yeah, I get that completely. It's so good.
Yeah. So that's really good that you said that, you know, like, how can you forgive someone who's gone? But you actually can. You have to, and you can. Because again, forgiveness works it's not really a two-way thing to forgive. You know, we can extend forgiveness, and we don't have to have someone to say, "Oh, okay, then." You know, it can be a one-way type deal. Reconciliation is more of a two-way. So that can bring a whole lot of healing.
It really can. It has for me, at least.
Yeah. So much. We'll have to do like a part 2.
I know.
At some point, because again,
part 3, 4, 5. It's a lot we could talk through.
It's a lot
related to our losses.
Yes, and I think it'll be great conversations to kind of continue. And I think I will. You know, we'll have to get together. She travels a lot for work, but I'll catch her.
She'll nail me down. Like she did for this.
Yes. Because we've just navigated through and still navigating through so much grief, you know. It's a journey, again, as we've mentioned. And but I want to kind of end I don't know, on a lighter note, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's been a great conversation. But just again, like just some funny things about your mom.
Like, gosh, her laugh will make you laugh. Like, oh my gosh, it's just such a, I don't even know how to describe her laugh, but I mean, she could get so tickled about something, and her laugh, her smile, and I have her smile, I have her face. Like, it's just crazy to see her in the mirror every day, but just her laugh, gosh, was just so contagious. Her spirit, her compassion, just so contagious. Like, gosh, I love that woman. Just such a good woman, such an understanding woman. Gosh, I always felt like she was just there for everyone, that she poured out so much, just willing to listen and be there for everyone. And she needed that too. So I think about that a lot. Just, you know, I that's some of the things I miss a lot, or feel like, gosh, I missed out on, is helping her to celebrate herself more. Because there's just so much that she deserved. And, you know, I think about that quite a bit. Like, you know, she's got the ultimate reward, right? But still, there was just so much she deserved, because she was such a good person. Loved her to death. Oh my goodness. Love you so much. So good.
Oh my goodness. This has been so, like I said, just awesome time. I thank you so much for sitting with me.
I'm elated. So happy to be here.
Sharing your mom with us. We love her. Miss her so very much. I pray that this would be honoring to her.
Yes.
Just to share her with the world, and just all those without moms this season. What is something that you can kind of leave with them?
I would just say, be encouraged. Know that, gosh, I tell myself this, that she would want me to celebrate as a mom, you know, and to not spend so much of my time grieving her, that it's okay to grieve her, but also, you know, really celebrate her, and celebrate myself as a mother. So just be encouraged, continue to grieve, but also celebrate, and just continue to live a life that, you know, your mom would want you to live, knowing that she's there with you, and do what you can to keep her alive. Create those traditions and those new memories with your, you know, if you're a mom now, with your kids, and just find a way to honor her in some way each Mother's Day.
I love that so much. She just said that so perfectly. That was so great. So again, thank you so much for sitting with me, Nicole.
Until next time.
Yay.
Thank you.
That brings me to the end of this episode. Thanks again for joining me, and thanks for listening to Can You Just Sit With Me? If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to come back for my next episode of Can You Just Sit With Me? Until then, this is Natasha Smith, helping you to find hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope in the challenging times of life. Be sure to connect with me across social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at I'm Natasha Smith.